It was made by those who are dead, and the dead keep it.
Hey everybody, this is Atticus the TheDeathMetaller, and I know it's been a long time since I've ever made a TheDeathMetaller Cinemas episode. Since like the past 2 years with Cuties. I watched it all the way through. And I feel fucking dirty. FBI, open up! Oh shit. But another Netflix special has gotten out of the blue last month as of late, and we are going to be reviewing Dahmer, Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. And I know a lot of you people are going to say this to me, Atticus the TheDeathMetaller, what do you mean? You've already made a video in regards to Jeffrey Dahmer, especially your death metal historian episode. Well, yes, I have, but considering everyone's reactions over this miniseries on Netflix, I feel that I need to talk about it. So consider this video a little bit of a DLC in regards to the death metal historian episode on Dahmer. So, without further ado, ladies and gents, let us begin. Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story was a collaborative effort done by Ian Brennan and Ryan Murphy. These two have been involved with such works such as Glee, Scream Queens, Nip Tuck, The Politician, Popular, etc. But the attention mostly goes over to Ryan Murphy, because the one thing I know Ryan Murphy the most is his series of American Horror Story. Now, I was never really into AHS when it premiered during the start of the 2010s, but around 2017, when I now had my sister-in-law's Netflix account, I decided to binge the fuck out of American Horror Story, from Murder House all the way to Roanoke. And oh my fucking god, don't get me started on Roanoke. Aside from all that, American Horror Story was a very well put series using the same cast as different characters, mostly Sarah Paulson, Tasia Farmiga, Farrah Farmiga's little sister, Jessica Lange, Kathy Bates, Angela Bassett, Emma Roberts, and of course, Evan motherfucking Peters. We'll talk about him later on this video. Oh yeah, and also Lady Gaga was in the American Horror Story later on with the series, with mostly Murder House and I think Roanoke. I consider American Horror Story to be an interesting series from Murder House to Freak Show, but it got average in Hotel before it went to shit on Roanoke, where I ceased to watch more of it. So ever since 2017, I really paid no attention to the show at all, or Ryan Murphy. That was until last month or August, I saw some articles as well as some posts on Instagram that Evan Peters portrays the Milwaukee Monster himself. But there was just one slight problem. There were tons of movies that were all about Dahmer, and they were all cringe. Let's face it, when it comes to films about real-life serial killers, they tend to all be cheesy, overly dramatic, as well as cringe. In Dahmer's case, he has had over 4 films about him. The first one, called Dahmer, starring Jeremy Renner. Yes, Jeremy Renner, the guy who would play Hawkeye in the MCU. Yeah, one of his early roles was actually on Jeffrey Dahmer. But back in time, a documentary about him was made called The Secret Life of Dahmer, made a year before his death. Then you had Raising Dahmer back in 2006, which I saw that film, and let me tell you...
What is that? What the fuck is that?
The casting choice for Lionel Dahmer...
Bruh.
That looks nothing like him. And finally you had My Friend Dahmer released in 2017 starring Ross Lynch and Alex Wolff of Hereditary fame. I would say that this was the most accurate portrayal of his time in Revere High, but at the same time, it was quite boring to say the least. But it was a good effort to say the least. But the Dahmer series trumps all of those down to the water. You could tell that Murphy put in a lot of thought and care in this series. To me, this works much better as a limited series because you don't have to condense a lot of stuff into a movie. But why does this series make it a lot better than the other movies that portrayed Dahmer.
So what the fuck am I talking about?
Let's find out.
I gotta say, I was pretty impressed with this series. For guys who made your typical mainstream channel drama shows, that this was a huge step for Murphy and Brennan. The first episode shows off Dahmer on the night that he got caught. The night where he was going to make Tracy Edwards his 18th victim, yet failed. Oh, and by the way, this is where we also got one of the funniest memes yet to date this year. Just roll it.
Told you. We're gonna hang out. Gonna watch a movie. Gonna take some pictures. And I'll pay you.
While it shows the moment that he was caught, we also catch a glimpse of the infamous incident where cops helped Dahmer bring the young Conrack synthesis phone. A moment, a lot of people where they believed that the law enforcement really fucked up on protecting the community right when they called them to help out the young Laotian boy. Of course, we also get the episodes where we see his tumultuous childhood growing up with his parents' volatile arguments, his loneliness, macabre hobbies, his sexuality, all leading up to the divorce and the killing of Stephen Hicks. Then we get to the downward spiral, the bathhouses, the gay clubs, yada yada yada. You all saw the Death Metal Historian episode.
God damn it! God fucking damn it!
But what was really needed, especially on a series on a serial killer, was that it primarily focused on those that Dahmer greatly affected. His parents, the victims' families, his neighbor Glenda Cleveland, we will talk about her later, as well as the community in Milwaukee. This was a community that was hurt and torn, and it was played out so well, seeing how his crimes really affected those that he hurt. And trust me, I did cry on some of these episodes, especially with the one with Tony. It was really that heavy. Now, this was not the first time that topics like this were explored. 2019's Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile, a film about Ted Bundy starring Zac Efron and Lily Collins. The film had more focus on Bundy's girlfriend at the time of his cross-country killing spree in Washington, Idaho, Colorado, and Florida, and how his crimes really affected their relationship. I would say it was average, A for effort, but I could safely say Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile walked so that Dahmer monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story could run. And oh boy, did it sprint like Usain Bolt. Evan Peters. What can I say about him? Evan Peters is such an underrated actor. I really liked his roles in American Horror Story, mostly in Asylum, Freak Show, and Hotel, especially playing Murphy's rendition of H.H. Holmes.
All you care about is evidence. Evidence, evidence, evidence. Until that evidence no longer fits the narrative you need to be true, at which point the evidence becomes an illusion.
And speaking of Hotel, side note, on the episode Devil's Night, you had Seth Gable play as Dahmer. A little bit of foreshadowing.
You see, Jeffrey, don't I always take care of you? Don't I?
When starting for his role, Peters really went in with a blindfold as explained here.
Well, I sort of started with a blank slate with Dahmer. I only had the image of the hazmat suits and the blue vat coming out of the building.
Now, I find it funny that with everyone knowing about Dahmer, with the infinite knowledge of the internet and a culture of American society, at least someone knows of him. But nah, Peters did a lot of digging and research into his role.
I immediately went to YouTube and he told me also to watch the Stone Phillips interview, and so I watched that and then proceeded to read biographies.
And there were also times when he was dealt so deeply into the character of Dahmer, he often was like, yeah, I need to take some breaks here. Because usually he's a very eccentric actor, and boy, he's very eccentric in most of his roles. But in the case of Dahmer, he was played very mild-mannered, and he really did a good job playing as Dahmer. But he was really in a lot of dark places mentally, and he just needed to take care of his mental health.
Honestly, I was very scared about all of the things that he did, and diving into that and trying to commit to that was absolutely going to be one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life.
It was such a challenge for him to really play the mild-mannered Dahmer, and my God, did he really put on that role 110%. with his mannerisms, his voice, everything. This dude was tailor-made to play as the Milwaukee Monster. Another actor I would give a lot of credit for would be that of Richard Jenkins. Jenkins too played a phenomenal role as Lionel Dahmer, and throughout the series I have always felt so bad and so sorry for Lionel. I still feel bad for him this very day.
And just like you, Jeff, you know, you said you tried to dig up a body once.
Yeah, just once.
Yeah, well, it turns out this guy, he did it like 30, 40 times digging up bodies.
From the issues with his first marriage, being at his wit's end helping Jeff through his alcoholism, to the very end of his death, to a guy that I can remember fondly in his role in Step Brothers, I could not help but cry on some of his scenes. And by far one of the underdogs of this series was the role of Niece Nash, playing as Glenda Cleveland.
Glenda, hey.
Jeff, sorry to bother you, but there's a smell coming from your apartment.
She was an astounding actress. While we have a lot of focus on Jeff and Lionel, we must give a lot of attention to Glenda, the woman who did what she could to help out Conrack but yet failed. And I too cried on some parts, on some scenes where she was with the symphones. It was quite the experience for me watching this from the victim's point of view. It really goes hard on those scenes.
I knew something was wrong. And I never should have trusted the police when they said everything was okay.
Now, this is the portion of the review where I'm probably going to disappoint all of you. Did the series hit the nail on all the events surrounding Jeffrey Dahmer? Or was it all bullshit? So first things foremost, we just talked about Glenda Cleveland, whom is by far a pivotal character in the series. Except there was just one slight problem about Glenda Cleveland. Glenda was not really Dahmer's neighbor. What the fuck? Yep, I hate to break it to you, but Glenda was not really Dahmer's neighbor. This was Dahmer's neighbor.
It's awful funny, whatever Jeff was cooking, Jeff never bought no groceries. So what could he have been cooking that smelled like chitlins? Chitlins have a very peculiar, nasty odor to them.
The real Glenda Cleveland lived in a building that was right next to the Oxford Apartments. However, Cleveland did constantly call the police after her daughter Sandra Smith and niece Nicole Childress attempted to help out Conrack before the police intervened to escort him with Dahmer. What they got right was a bunch of things I have said on the Death Metal Historian, but I'm not going to lay them out for you, for I will tell you the stuff I did not say in the episode. One thing Dahmer did to enhance his killing experiences was to wear contacts that made him look like Emperor Palpatine and the Gemini Killer in The Exorcist 3. And of course, he would make most of his victims watch that movie, cueing back to that meme. Another thing I did not know was that Dahmer was baptized the same day Gacy was executed. Fun fact, Gacy did a little cameo in the series finale. Another thing that got right was how Dahmer photobombed in a lot of his clubs in his school's yearbook. This was also covered in My Friend Dahmer. Another thing, during the entire trial, Dahmer was shown wearing his trademark glasses, but in the real trial, he didn't wear his glasses. To go back on what was fiction would be these following events. An incident where Dahmer drugged Ron Flowers in his grandmother's house. All that did not happen. What was real was how Flowers came to the hospital where he was covered in abrasions believed to be assaulted. Now, this is where this series wanted to make a fictional telling on how Flowers almost became a victim to Dahmer. Dahmer really did not kill Dean Vaughn, but he was found dead by strangulation in his apartment. Dahmer was both questioned at the time of the murder as well as being caught. Dahmer denied ever knowing the guy. Also, that scene of him chugging that blood plasma was bullshit. I'm gonna be for real on that. While yes, he did work at a blood plasma center, he did drink blood, but only a vial. Now, of course, a series about this guy was bound to gain a lot of hype and a lot of controversy right from the start. I do not blame people. This was a guy that legit caused real harm and horrors, not to his victims and their families, but also an entire community and the institutions that fail to protect that said community. But the way on how people are flipping out about this is by far some of the dumbest shit I have seen. Yet at the same time, I am not all in the slightest surprised. What I find funny is how people are now finding out about Dahmer. Like, I initially thought that it was common knowledge that sooner or later that every generation will find out about these infamous serial killers. But either most people live under Dwayne Johnson or that Gen Z are really that brain dead. And when you have these groups of people, yet you get, of course, cancel culture. Now, I'm now starting to accept that cancel culture is really here to stay and it will never go away. Visual Venture made an excellent video on cancel culture, which I highly encourage you all to watch it down in the description below. But why do I bring up cancel culture in the first place? Well, when it came to the Dahmer series, people did not go out of their way to bash on Ryan Murphy. No. They went after Katy Perry and Kesha. I'm not making this shit up. People went after Katy Perry and Kesha over their songs Dark Horse and Cannibal. Now, I've never listened to Dark Horse, but I did listen to Cannibal, which Kesha did a reference to Jeffrey Dahmer in that song. Dark Horse, I believe Katy also brought up Dahmer, which of course the internet, being the internet, discovered those songs and deemed them to be taken down on all platforms. Like what's next? Soulfly, Aborted, Carrion Veil, Impious, and Macabre.
You have no power here.
Artists, whether they're metal or pop artists, are going to make songs about serial killers. As much as we abhor their actions, they're a macabre part of our culture, and we have a sort of morbid fascination on what made them tick. Now, this is in no way, shape, or form justifies their actions at all. And what I gather is that these people who are doing this all in some way trying to stick up for the victims' families, which I find absolute bullshit. But you know what? I'm just gonna have a very spicy take out of all this. Those same people that are like flipping out about the Dahmer series are the same people that either were silent or were defending cuties. Yes, I went there. The only people who should feel grievance at all over this series are the families of the victims, where in some articles I have stumbled were re-traumatized of everything, which I can completely and thoroughly understand. Oh, hi. This is future Atticus TheDeathMetaller here, waiting on a Uber ride, but I forgot to mention one thing over on this segment of my review. Now, I did say that the only people that were greatly affected over the series would be that of the victims' families. Now, this is one thing that I really left off, is that Ryan Murphy wanted to be as authentic as possible and respectful to the victims and their families as he possibly could. There was just one slight thing that they really forgot to do, was ask permission to the victims' families, as well as Lionel Dahmer himself. And once it all came out and about, you can absolutely be safely sure that they were absolutely livid, really livid. It's like when you're on a date with a woman and you ask if you want to kiss her. If she says yes, go ahead. If she says no, don't do it. It's essentially the same thing. They did not give consent over to the families. They did not ask permission, and it's filmmaker 101. It really is. And the last time I've heard was that Lionel Dahmer is actually lawyering the fuck up and is preparing to sue the shit off of Netflix. So yeah. I forgot to leave that out too.
Don't fuck with me, Jeffrey! I'll kill you, goddammit! Look at me! Look at me, motherfucker!
This is also another part of the review that's gonna be a quite spicy take, but it does need to be said. Not only did Dahmer explore the stories of Glenda Cleveland and the victims and their pain, but also the absolute failure of the law and justice system. Dahmer was clearly a walking red flag that had all the checks of a deeply disturbed individual, yet everyone saw right through them. Dahmer was arrested for indecent exposure at a fair. He was in prison for a year after drugging Conrac's brother. Dahmer, while being a huge burden for his father Lionel, was given no amount of attention by the system, and a community suffered for it. The majority of his victims, I explained on the Death Metal Historian episode, were black. And right when Dahmer was caught, the black community felt that this was all racially motivated. Remember, this was a year when he was arrested that not too long ago, the Rodney King beating, the Latasha Harlins incident happened. A time where racial tensions were already at their boiling point, a year before LA 92. The series shows a palpable plume of smoke on how Dahmer's white privilege, and I know you all hate for me saying white privilege, but you have to admit, his white privilege was his golden ticket to continue his orgy of depravity. The series made an ugly truth on why Dahmer killed so many due to an incompetent law enforcement that focused on heavy policing on a minority community rather than putting the book on a registered sex offender that was getting away with much more. By the time that he was apprehended, the damage was already done, and 16 lives besides Stephen Hicks were all snuffed out. The show made a perfect highlight on how institutional racism has and still is a huge problem in this country, and how we as a nation need to address it more. And I know most people, it's like beating a dead horse, but there's nothing that really does it. Yes, people like those that have killed off Ahmaud Arbery and of course Derek Chauvin that killed George Floyd are punished, but there still needs a lot more work to be done. Still to this day, Dahmer, Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story was the series we all did not ask for, but we all wanted it. Despite some creative differences to the series, I think Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan did a phenomenal job. Evan Peters went above and beyond to play his performance as the Milwaukee Monster, along with the stunning performances of both Richard Jenkins and Niecy Nash. Despite the creative liberties, you could tell that Murphy and Brennan put in a lot of care in telling the story of Dahmer right and properly. Dahmer, Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story gets an A- for this review. So what'd you guys think about this review? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Did you watch the series? Did you get outraged over when it brought forth on everything out there? Are you flipping out over Kesha and Katy Perry? Are you flipping out over Aborted and Macabre and Pious and Kesha making songs about serial killers? Leave it all down in the comments below. And stay tuned for more videos to come. Without further ado, ladies and gents, I am Atticus the Death Metaller. Hope you liked this video. Subscribe to this channel. Links are down in the description below. Keep it metal, stay safe, stay healthy, and guys, have a very happy and a very safe Halloween. Cheers.